Welcome to our new monthly web series, Trade Talk with Jim. I am Jackie Fucci, Senior Writer at AgriBusiness Global, a publication of Meister Media Worldwide. Many of you are already familiar with Jim DeLisi. He's been a regular at our trade summits. He's been a speaker and a frequent contributor. But for those who aren't familiar, Jim, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started with Fanwood Chemical?
Sure. I was invited to join my father in business in 1976, primarily involved with organic chemicals and intermediates. We began doing a lot of work tracing imports and exports shortly thereafter. I've also been heavily involved in trade policy. I've been chairman of SOCMA's trade committee for since about 1977, 78, and also heavily involved in the Industry Trade Advisory Committee for Chemicals, Pharmaceuticals, Health Science Products and Services, which I joined in 1980. So trade policy has been a key part of my work for about 40 years.
Great. So you've been sharing your knowledge, keeping us in the loop on the tariffs ever since the U.S. China trade war began. It was 3 years ago now. So right now, can you just tell us your perspective on the status of the Phase 1 agreement from a bird's eye view and with respect to agrochemicals specifically? Like, what are the key points people need to know?
Sure. There are, as I hope everyone knows, there were actually 4 tranches of tariffs that were imposed under Section 301 by the President by executive order. Tranches 1 and 2 had very little, if any, impact at all in agrochemicals, though it did have a big impact on agriculture because the Chinese reacted with high tariffs on U.S. agricultural products. Tranche 3 covers all formulated ag chemicals and many active ingredients at 25%. Tranche 4A covers several important agrochemicals at 7.5%, including 2,4-D and dicamba. Tranche 4B was never enacted. It would have covered glufosinate and glyphosate and many other very large volume active agrochemicals. So as it stands right now, there is only one agrochemical which is exempted from the tariffs that was included, and that's paraquat formulated, and its exemption only lasts through the end of this year, and it's hard to tell whether it will be renewed again. There were only 4 ag chemicals that were exempted from the Tranche 3 tariffs, and the other 3 are now back at 25%. The reason that Tranche 4A was not put in is there was a Stage 1 agreement with China that was signed in January of this year. It requires the Chinese to purchase a significant amount of agricultural products and industrial commodities. Recent reports say that they are at 70. They have accomplished 71% of that goal. That would be wonderful. Hopefully, it's true. So we'll learn more about that over the next month or so. And hopefully by the end of the year, they will hit those requirements. The so-called Phase 2 agreement they never thought that they would get to that until after the election. So if the president is reelected, there will be discussions on a Phase 2 agreement. We're told that the folks in the trenches at both the United States Trade Reps Office and their counterparts in China have continued to work diligently to make the Phase 1 agreement a reality. So hopefully with all of that baseline work, if the president is reelected, there will be some kind of a move towards the Phase 2 agreement, which will hit some of the more difficult issues between U.S. and China that can begin expeditiously so that we can move beyond these big tariffs. The key takeaway, though, is that the tariffs were imposed by executive order, and Vice President Biden has sent mixed signals on how he would handle China. He proposes a more multilateral approach. Whether that will include the elimination or the continuation of the tariffs is not possible to discern at this point. And so what I've been saying for months is, if you've got material coming into the United States that's going into inventory and is not to be used before January 2021, it is likely best to keep that material in a bonded warehouse so that you will not have 25% surtax in that included in the value. Because if the vice president does choose to remove the tariffs, he can do it with a stroke of a pen. Executive orders are easily reversed. And if that happens, you'll have a warehouse full of very expensive material with new material arriving that's 25% less valuable. So word to the wise is just be super careful and plan your inventory processes very carefully.
You don't think that Biden would continue the tariffs, and also just how would things change if Trump wins the election?
It's impossible to tell at this moment in time what the vice president will do. He has, as I say, he sent mixed signals. There are many on the Democratic side that say the vice president will be tougher on China than the president has been, and then there are some that say no, that's not the case. There is details on both sides whether the tariffs have actually been successful at what they were trying to accomplish or whether they haven't worked. The Chinese won a WTO judgment against us a couple of months ago, which is really moot because there is no appellate body at the WTO to take it to, so that it's not going anywhere at this point in time. But there is a lot of pros and cons on both sides, and it's hard to tell exactly where the vice president will land at this point. He's not nominated. He's not proposed to nominate anybody for United States Trade Rep's office or Secretary of State, which might give us a clue as to how they'd handle it. But so far, those nominations are unknown.
Okay. So just shifting topics a little bit, the Syngenta ChemChina issue. Both ChemChina and Sinochem were added to a list in August kept by the Department of Defense of entities that are deemed to be quote unquote communist Chinese military companies. So how do you think this could impact Syngenta and Adama's ability to operate in the US? How likely is it that something will happen?
Well, the actual listing was dated August 28, 2020. At this point in time, there's nothing going on. They have not pressed it. However, if there was hostilities between China and the United States, it would have immediate impact, and most likely beginning with the banking system, is that they would block them from using the U.S. banking system, which would cripple them worldwide. It also will have an impact if they decide to try to borrow money in the United States. The banks might look at it a little bit more carefully, and it could impact their ability to make some acquisitions, because the fact that they're listed as communist Chinese military companies would likely have an impact on the so-called CFIUS review process, where any major acquisition by a foreign entity in the United States needs to be reviewed. Frankly, Syngenta is also a substantial biotech company with the seeds and other things that they do, which is a CFIUS trigger. So at this point, it's ill-defined the impact it will have. But it could be significant, and frankly, it could happen pretty quickly. The other thing is there's been information in the press that there might be an interest in spinning off Syngenta and ChemChina, Syngenta as a private company. It could it could help make that happen faster, because clearly if it was a private stock holding company without any attachment to the military, that would remove these extra concerns. So that could speed that process up.
Okay, thank you for that. It's very interesting. You follow the imports of agrochemical active ingredients to the U.S. Compile that data into an index every month. So just wondering, what are the latest trends in each of the categories you're seeing? How does it compare to last year, and how are you expecting the rest of 2020 to go headed into 2021?
Well, compared to 2017 and 2018, 2019 was a disaster. It was probably off by about 25% across the board. 2020 appeared to continue the 2019 trends, with the exception of biocides. That could be because of all the rain and the adverse weather issues. Excuse me. The next round of data will be out in about 2 weeks, and we will update the index. From what I'm hearing, from what we're seeing, it looks like 2020 is going to continue to plod along. Hopefully 2021 will be a better year, that if the Chinese do buy all the agricultural commodities they've been required to buy under the Phase 1 agreement, which the Phase 1 agreement also includes purchases in 2021. It could be a really good year for agriculture. If there's a change in that, it could be another down year. So it's hard to tell at this moment exactly what 2021 will look like until after we settle a presidential election and we see who the new cabinet members are going to be and what their policies are going to be. So except for biocides, 2020 is similar to 2019.
Okay. All right. Well, we will be updating also with your data as it comes out every month. You said in a couple of weeks you'll have some, so we will be sure to post that. And Jim, I look forward to speaking with you again. We can continue this conversation just every month, and we'll be posting it on our website. So keep an eye out for that, everyone. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Jackie.
Thanks.